Still loading.
I get those goosebumps every time, yeah, 713 through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low-key. I'm sipping low-key and honest, flying rider. I get those goosebumps every time.
Newcastle United.
I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Up the mugs. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. We are back again. Welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC, the fully loaded transfer show. And just when you think nothing's going to happen, it's just quiet, no news, the wheels start turning and things are starting to turn for Newcastle United as we head towards that July the 1st summer window. Let's talk about it. Boys, that's Chris. How are you on this fine Tuesday evening?
Did we really think nothing was going to happen? I think we thought something was going to happen because you came up with that slogan last night: "Wheels in motion, transfer activity detected." All good with me. The sun is out here this evening now in Galway. It was kind of cloudy all day, but it's sun. That's why it's affecting my background here. But not all good. Yeah, it's really starting to pick up now. With bids going in, so yeah, getting interesting times. There may finally be light at the end of the tunnel, boys. Chris, I know you're not well, but how are you?
Oh, mate, I'm feeling sorry for myself today, but it wasn't enough to stop me doing a fully loaded transfer show. I finished work early, but I was up with an arm, and then I thought, no, I need to get myself on. Got to get myself on because there's been some really exciting news, and I wanted to come on and join you boys talking about it. But yeah, I am getting there. It's just a heavy dose of man flu. I think that's all it is. But peace, how are you doing, mate? You all right?
Not too bad. Yeah. Same old, plodding along, waiting towards the summer. And yes, waiting for some signings as well. All you good people streaming into the chat right now, do the good stuff. Sophie B's in the chat. She'll tell you what's right. Get those likes up nice and early. Get them in. And get your comments and questions. We've seen a few questions in the chat already, which is great. We will have a little section about questions coming towards the end of the show, but get your likes in. Massively appreciated. Let's get us up to 200 as soon as possible. That would be amazing. And thank you for tuning in. I was going to start somewhere, but then things have happened. So then we're going to have to move. Let's just jump straight in 2 feet and get it all done and dusted. Jimmy Watt with the only thing that can stop is his internet, absolutely. And tonight, the internet can't even stop him. He's in.
I'm here.
It's early days, not yet.
Oh, yeah, I know, yeah.
I was about to say, as our fingers crossed, it's like for now.
And Chris, correct. Sorry, tangent first. Sorry. You have fiber broadband, don't you, Chris?
Mate, right, just to be clear.
Because I don't, because this is what going.
Mate, I have the 1 gigabyte Virgin box. It's like £69 a month. It's not even like, a low speed one. It's like it's meant to be one of the best out there,
Yeah.
and yeah, it struggles, mate. It struggles.
I think I need to talk to you. Talk a few little tricks to get your broadband right in your house. Yeah, no, I will have fiber broadband. I think within 6 months. So
very good.
Fingers crossed. Then those days are over for good. But
good man.
Side tangent over. Unless we start talking about Davies dead.
Oh, Davies den.
It's in the works. We'll provide a better update as we go along, but it's ticking along nicely. Can't complain. Cannot complain. But let's talk about it because as someone just put in the chat a minute ago, there are Bill Ashby actually said there are some Forest fans detected in the chat tonight. Welcome to those Forest fans. All got no doubt. No doubt we will come to you in just a second. But look, an ongoing conversation around this man, Anthony Elanga, and his potential move to Newcastle United. We did a little run through before. We know the previous links. We know the stuff on his social media. We even got a Matteo Moretto update with regards to 2 players that Forest are potentially interested in, which got tongues wagging from a Newcastle perspective. Does that mean that Anthony Elanga is coming to Newcastle United? People weren't sure. I certainly weren't sure. I didn't think we were going to go in for him. But it all changed. We got the Ornstein bomber. Boom. There we go. And the exclusive, Newcastle United have made an offer that was very quickly rejected of £45 million. Forest have no intentions of selling the winger and consider whether to go in again with another offer. A friend of the family, loaded family. Pete Graves, it might as well be family. Pete Graves has reported on it from a Sky Sports perspective. So is another loaded family member, Keith Downey, who has also reported on this. But interestingly, not only has it been rejected, Forest are apparently valuing Elanga at £60 million.
What?
I'm just repeating what the storyboard is telling me. Newcastle have other targets in play, which we'll come back to later. Again, Alex Crook mentions very specifically they value him at £60 million. There are rumours to say that they apparently want more than £60 million for Anthony Elanga. Boys, just on what we've covered so far, what are your initial thoughts on Anthony Elanga and that 45 million bid that was rejected? Yes.
Okay. First of all, delighted to see that there's bids going in, and I think we'll see a bit more of that over the next few days. I like Elanga. I know when we talked about him before, I think I valued him a bit more than you guys. I think Newcastle always do this. They go with a low enough-ish value for players. That's always what they do. I saw what you said on Twitter, Pete. I myself would go in again. I'd go 50. I'd even go as far as 50 plus 5. But based on performances and certain criteria that we could and he could meet. That's where I'd stop then. I wouldn't be going to the 60. No, but I would go as far as 50 if pushed. But I work. But I also don't want this to continue like a gay situation. I'd even start considering a second bid, but going in for the other options now as well, because I know you'll get to that. But there's other options that we and I even throw in a bid for one of them as well at the same time.
Chris, it was rumoured that we went in last summer on the deadline day of a 40 million bid, which got rejected. I think they wanted roughly around 50 million, which I don't think we're willing to pay at that point. We've gone in 45 million. Do you think that's a fair amount of money to go in initially for Anthony Elanga? Would you do what Daz has suggested in going in a little bit more for another bid? Where are you at with this now that an official bid has gone in and been rejected?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I wanted to give NFFC 2000 his credit, because he's put you all laughed at me, I have to say. And yeah, do you know what? And I'm talking from my perspective here, NFFC 2000. Like, to me, Anthony Elanga is worth around £45 million, and you could argue, like, we will all say Alexander Isak's worth 180 to yourselves. He's probably worth what, 130, 140, and naturally you always raise the price of your own players, and I totally get that. And the difficulty, I suppose, is the fact that we're seeing that Man United are having to go north of 60 million for Brian Mbeumo, and he's only got a year left on his deal. So I can totally understand why Forest are going, we're not selling him for 45 million. We want 50 million, 55, 60, 65. Totally get it. It's a player you don't have to sell. It's a player you don't need to sell. And Forest are entitled to ask for exactly what they want. Me personally, Pete, it depends. I suppose it depends how much Eddie Howe wants him.
That's the big thing.
Yeah, my personal opinion is, if you're spending 50, 55 million on a winger, I'm sorry, but there's better ones out there. There just is. But it's how much Eddie Howe wants Anthony Elanga. I wouldn't be upset if we got Anthony Elanga. I think he's a good player. Do I think he's a big enough upgrade on Jacob Murphy? I mean, he's an upgrade, but he's not. I wasn't looking at this, 12, 18, 24 months ago and thinking, we need someone like Anthony Elanga. That I just wasn't. I wasn't there with that. However, you look at some of the signings that we've made under Eddie Howe. For example, Dan Burn. I always liked Dan Burn. I thought Dan Burn was decent, but when we signed him, I wasn't doing cartwheels. But look at what he's done. So I can't. I can't criticize, or I can't say, that we shouldn't be paying XYZ for them. But me personally, from having watched Anthony Elanga and seen what I've seen, I just know, I don't even think, I know that there's better out there for that kind of money. But is Anthony Elanga more of a safe bet? Probably. But it's just how much Newcastle and how much Eddie Howe are willing to put down for him. I thought I started, but I'm going to mention it now. Claire G said, I wish we'd stop lowballing when we know what the fee they want. And I get the frustration. I do kind of get it, because that 45 million bid was never going to be accepted. It's the worst known secret that Anthony Elanga, they're going to want north of 55, maybe 60 million for them. And as I say, if Brentford are wanting Brian Mbeumo, if they're wanting more than 60 million, why would Forest sell for 45? And this is the frustration. This is I suppose you've got to ask the question, but you would have thought that these discussions would have been taking place over the last number of weeks. So why go in with a 45 million bid? I don't know. Maybe things aren't as far progressed as what we've been led to believe, but it's interesting that it's been reported that the bid's gone in, but it does feel incredibly low. And will we go back? I don't know. As I say, me personally, Pete, I probably wouldn't. I'd move on. But it goes back to the Mark Gay deal from 12 months ago. You go in with your offer, you set your price, you leave it there, and you move on, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's split. This Anthony Elanga situation is completely split the fan base. We've had a massive discussion on Mags Down South chat today. People are split across the way. It's like and everyone's got valid opinions of why they either agree with this pursuit of Elanga or not. And you could just see it in the super chats here. So you got Nobby Clark, thank you for your super chat here. Anthony Elanga is better than what we thought. The young Gordon we brought from Everton at the time.
That's a really fair point.
When you look at the situation and you look at the output that Elanga's given this season just gone, then you absolutely agree with that. But Jeannie Esther has put in a super chat saying Elanga is not worth 60 million, good player, but doesn't have the technical ability needed to break down the low blocks. I prefer a technical lefty, and he's given 2 suggestions there of players that we've already talked about previously.
And Giniesta could potentially be in Sweden. I'm not sure because he's super chartist in SEC, so it could be he could be based in Sweden. So he may be even seeing more of him again from a Swedish point of view.
Mate, do you know what? That they are two fantastic. Not just saying this, they are two fantastic super chats because it's two different sides of the coin, as you've mentioned, Pete. And I can't disagree with either. I cannot disagree with either. Like they're both really good points.
But the only thing is, lads, of all the other four options that we're going to probably get onto as well, this is the one Eddie's pushed the button on first. So yeah, that's just what if he could get this one over the line for a reasonable fee, that's who he wants. I don't see why he wouldn't have gone for one of the others first if he thought that was the one that could get done.
We know he obviously wanted Mbeumo. We never got round to having discussions about that because he made it clear he wanted to go to Man United, which was fine. But yeah, it's a valid point. Again, he's obviously looked at Elanga as the second option, which maybe balls back to history. The thing, this is my kind of perspective on Anthony Elanga's situation. I have to make it clear, I had to make it clear in the chat that I was talking about in earlier, is that I actually like Anthony Elanga as a player. I think he's a good player. I think he caused absolute terror problems for so many defenses last season. He had a good output in terms of his numbers. He's 23 years old. He's got room to grow and develop. And look, let's be honest. Eddie Howe will make him better. There's no doubt about that. He will become a better player under Newcastle United. My only issue, and it's always been the same, it hasn't changed since the first link from Craig Hope, however many weeks ago. I'm not comfortable in a season or in a summer where we need to sign multiple players for at decent fees. I'm not comfortable going to crazy amounts of money for Anthony Elanga. I got pelters for saying his value was around 35, 40 million. Newcastle bid 40 million last summer. They've now bid 45 that's been rejected. I wouldn't be against if we got a deal done at 50 million. I would maybe let it slide at 55, but anything above that, I don't think it's value for the player. I just don't think it's value for the player in terms of the summer that we're trying to build in and the money that we're trying to spend. We haven't got massive amounts of money to spend. And we have to remember one thing just before I carry on about the Anthony Elanga situation, and it's the bottom line. I had this for the last show and I didn't use it, and I think it was really, really important because I think it was in a piece that Mark Douglas put in, and he put the theory around not spending heavily amounts of money on players is that Newcastle want to keep their bottom line healthy, so in 2026 they won't be held to ransom for the likes of Isak and Sandro Tonali. And in that piece, I thought that was a really, really important point, is that we're all looking to the summer thinking we've got all this money to spend and we're just going to go and blow it on one summer. The reality is very different. We are going to spend money on players. We're going to build this squad up, but we also have to look ahead. We're not a Man City. We're not a Chelsea. We're not a Liverpool that can just splash loads of money out every summer or every window and everything's fine. It's not. So we have to think ahead. And that's why some fans have said to me, it's not our money, who cares? Well, we do need to care because we don't want to be back next summer in the same position that we were the previous summer. And so it's important. So every player has to have a value. And for me, anything beyond north of 55 million, I think is too much. It doesn't mean that I think Elanga is a rubbish player. I don't. If we end up signing him, I think he'll do well at Newcastle United. But I'm worried that us paying 60 or 60 plus million for Elanga will mean that it's a detrimental effect to a centre-back, to a potential attacker, to a potential goalkeeper, or whoever we're planning on signing. I worry that it has a negative impact on the back of that. Now, just really quickly, boys, I just wanted to throw something up because it had come to me. And there is a little bit of an update with regards to the Elanga situation, and it's come from Mark Douglas. So Mark Douglas has just said, it's just come out, that Newcastle are to make a quick call on the second bid of Anthony Elanga. Okay, they don't want to get dragged into a saga, which is an important point. We don't want to be there again, second, third, fourth bids like we were last summer. Alternatives, which we'll come on to a second, quoted 70 million for Semenyo. This is why, lad. This is why we're having this issue with Anthony Elanga this summer.
Yeah.
When you've got Mbeumo that's going for near 70 million, when you've got Semenyo that's been quoted 70 million, but you've got Elanga who's performed the same, if not better than Semenyo. Of course, Forest are in their right minds to go, we want 70 million. If you want 70 million, if Bournemouth want 70 million for Semenyo, why are we not asking for 70 million for Elanga? They don't need to sell. We're in the same position, and we had the same conversation about Alexander Isak in the last show.
Yeah.
We've set our value for him because we don't want to sell him. Well, they don't want to sell Anthony Elanga. My question is, how long do we wait before we move on to the next player? Because we cannot afford for it to be a saga. And
tomorrow
it looks like
is the answer.
Well, there you go. I mean, it looks like from what Mark Douglas has said, people just coming in now, it says on there they're going to make a quick call with a second bid. They're either going to go all in for him, like you boys have said, as you just mentioned it, I think it was, or Chris, about, if Howe wants him, they're either going to decide he's our guy, we're going to pay whatever it is to get him out of Forest. If not, we move on. And I think that brings us nicely to the segue to the next point, because what came out about 20 minutes before the show went live is another bit from Keith Downey, and it's this. So Newcastle are exploring an option for 3 other players in this position. You have Johan Bakayoko at PSV. You have Karim Adeyemi by Borussia Dortmund. And you have another player that we talked about a lot, Mohamed Kudus at West Ham. So, is it going to be a case of we go bid for Anthony Elanga, or is it a case that we go bid for one of these 3 players? So my question to you boys is, now we've had the discussion on Anthony Elanga, we've given our opinions on it, what do we now think of the potentials that Keith Downey's just put out in the last half an hour or so about who we could be going for as an alternative? I mean, we've talked about these boys before. Adeyemi is a player that we know and have talked about previously. Mohamed Kudus, another, and Johan Bakayoko, all linked with Newcastle United, so they're clearly on the list. Daz, what are your thoughts about that?
What would I do? What I do? 9 o'clock, I'd have the second bid in for Elanga, if that's the route Eddie wants to go. If that gets rejected, I'd have on the same day I'd have a bid going in for one of them, and I'd go for Adeyemi from Borussia Dortmund myself. I like him. I loved watching him when we played against us. I thought he was unreal. Now I know he's had some injuries this season. A left-footed winger as well. Actually, I was looking at him earlier. 23, same age as Elanga, and hasn't played in the Premier League, so doesn't have that Premier League experience. I saw as well, Arsenal and Spurs are looking at Kudus, so there's going to be a bit of a bidding more there. And then if we play that saga out, he'll end up wanting to stay in London. That's what will happen there. And Bakayoko from PSV, I've always said the same thing about him. If the 17 million that was talked about last week, then yes, he's definitely a viable option. But if you're talking to the 35 million mark, then I have serious doubts, because not that he's not a talent, it's just that it's a bit more of a gamble, and I don't think it's a gamble we should take, because we need because what could happen is this: we just revert back to Murphy, and it's all Murphy. He gets sidelined. But on the Semenyo one, he was like one of my first choices for at the start before the whole Mitchell thing. But I definitely wouldn't be going as far as 70. I mean, I'd stretch more than Elanga. I mean, I might go to 60 for Semenyo, because I do really rate him. But I think what they should do is have 2 bids ready tomorrow. If it's Elanga, either go straight off, cut him off Elanga, and go straight for another option. But I don't think they will. They seem to have done too much groundwork there. But I quickly pivot during the day if it gets shut down by Forest. And none of this hanging around. Just move really, really quickly, because we have other positions to sort out as well.
Chris, and now that you've seen the alternatives and you kind of know the gist of what's happening with the Elanga situation, where are you seeing it? Are you going all in with Elanga? Are you looking at any one of those alternatives? Kind of where are you at with this current situation?
Yeah, it's an interesting article from Keith. The only one that I'm struggling a bit with is probably Johan Bakayoko. And the reason to say that is because obviously we heard news that Daz mentioned there that that he's going for quite a nominal fee. So to me, in regard to Bakayoko, in fact, I'll do it in the order. I'll do it in the order of the four. So obviously Keith mentioned three in his article, and I know it was Mark Douglas, Pete, who mentioned Semenyo. He mentioned the figure for Semenyo. So for me, in that order, if we get to Elanga, if we get to the Elanga point and we go, right, we're not going over 55, Forest wants 60, 65, 70, right, walk away. For me, I think I would probably see if we can do the Semenyo deal. I think it's going to be similar to the Elanga deal in the sense that I think we'd probably go in 50, 55 and Bournemouth would go, no, we want 70. And because of what we discussed on the last show in terms of Bournemouth not needing to sell, they're on the cusp of selling Zabarnyi. They've already sold Huijsen. They're about to sell Kerkez. They don't need the money. Now this brings up the next interesting one, and that's Mohamed Kudus. Because if rumours are to be believed, West Ham could, and maybe, are in a position where they do need to sell before the PSR deadline, which is on Monday. Now, Mohamed Kudus, I think, has got a release clause. Is it somewhere between 70 and 75 million, something along those lines? Yeah. They're not going to get that for him, and I think West Ham know that. Now, Mohamed Kudus comes at a premium because obviously he's got Premier League experience. He's proved that he can do it in the Premier League, but I do think it's negotiable. And I personally, I think you could probably, and this is just my opinion, I don't know for fact, but I reckon that West Ham would probably want to do a deal between 50 and 55, particularly if it was before the June the 30th deadline. And if it means they can keep hold of the likes of Jared Bowen, they'd probably be more than willing to do it. That would be who I would approach next. Adeyemi, we've seen him firsthand. Obviously, we played Dortmund twice in the Champions League, didn't we? And he looked very, very good. But he doesn't come with that Premier League experience. And as Daz rightly said, he's had a few injuries and stuff. Again, we'd probably go lower figure. Whether Dortmund would accept that, I don't know. And yet the Bakayoko one, he would probably be my last choice. And not because I'm saying I don't want him, because we've talked about him a fair bit on this channel. And I think, he's certainly a player of interest. But am I confident that he could be our first choice right winger next season? I'm not so sure. And the reason I'm coming to that conclusion is, it's not like he's got a host of clubs queuing up, to bang down his door. And I think if the deal was as cheap as they suggest, I think it would have already been done by now. So to me, Bakayoko, and not to cause a scene or cause any rumours, Bakayoko strikes me as a deal that we do if we were to sell like a Jacob Murphy and we needed a new right winger backup. That is who I would go for in Johan Bakayoko. A bit similar to Tyler Dibbling, who's far more expensive, but he feels like the youngster coming through who can provide support or backup to the first choice right winger. I don't see Johan Bakayoko as the first choice right winger personally. So in that order, if we walk away from Elanga, I would go Semenyo, Kudus, Adeyemi, and then I go Bakayoko.
It's an interesting one. There are some good options there, all offer different qualities, but all would absolutely improve the team.
Yeah.
There's another player as well that was linked in the piece. Someone put it in the chat as well, but I've just read the piece myself, and it's this man, Alakushe from Monaco, who again we've talked about, again a player that's been monitored by the club and who is absolutely exciting talent. I know Bayer Leverkusen are a team that are currently looking at him as well, and he would be a very exciting signing. So there's a number of different options there. I like the Adeyemi alternative. It's a player that we haven't talked about as much as some of the other ones, hasn't been linked as much, but he does hold the fundamentals. He's absolutely lightning quick. He's good in and behind. and he has the opportunity to create problems. And what he does have is that left foot cutting inside that some people want. Some people will want the right hand side directness that Jacob Murphy offers to give that security and that kind of, that feeding Alexander Isak, which has been crucial this season. But having that player that can cut inside on his left is crucial. It's an interesting one that they're all sort of 23 and under.
Yeah.
They're all players. I mean, I think Mohamed Kudus is maybe a little bit older, but certainly the bulk of the players that we're looking at are all within that age range. So it's clearly a type of player that
Great age.
Looking at, of course, a great age. Even Mohamed Kudus, great age. And yeah, I'm excited by some of the alternatives, and this should hopefully let fans know that Newcastle United are fighting on multiple fronts for players in various positions. We've already talked about 4 or 5 different players here, including Anthony Elanga, that we could actually get. And let's be honest, if we got any one of those, I think Newcastle United would improve significantly as a team if we got any one of those players, including Anthony Elanga in the pitch on the pitch next season. Could it be that this noise coming out from Keith Downey is almost a kick up the backside to Nottingham Forest? That if they want this sort of money, is it a bit of a play by Newcastle United saying, look, we're willing to pay for him, but we're not going to play around. We're not going to go through games. We've got other options here. And does that maybe make Nottingham Forest make a decision? Or does it mean that we are already looking in a different direction? We don't really know, but there's some really interesting options there.
There's 2 more that just spring to mind. I know they're not. We haven't been really linked, but just coming from the chat there, I know Chris, you've been mentioning was Ferran Torres. He's talk about him and Villa potentially looking at him because Barcelona now are after buying Rooney as well, and so they're like 10 wingers there sitting there idle, and they're all looking at Nico Williams is coming in as well, and they already have Yamal. It's just absolutely crazy the what's stockpiled there. And the other one was a question for you, Chris. Here, I think you're the only one to be able to answer this, Chris. Because Andy Ford, Chris, what about the Japanese right winger from Real Sociedad? What is his name again?
Oh, is it? I assume he's referring to Kubo.
It's Kubo.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
So the discussion will go on, but I think this discussion won't go on for too long because I think Newcastle United will make a decision on what they're doing very, very quickly.
Yeah.
As we said, we get closer to that June 30th deadline and the 1st of July, and that new window opens, Newcastle United will be active. And it already seems that Newcastle United are going to be active. So strap in, people. This will be the first of many conversations that we'll have over the course of the summer about potential signings this season. Let's kind of move on for now, and we can come back to a different situation. But let's go back to the goalkeeper situation. There's a situation that we haven't really talked about much just recently, but as a little bit of an update, James Trafford is still the number 1 target that Newcastle United want. We didn't get to this at the back end of the last show because we had the Scalvini stuff that popped up, which we will come back to later on. But we had this from Plattenberg that Burnley were considering a deal for Max Weiss and looking to conclude that deal. Well, that seems to have moved on a little bit because then we got noise from Fabrizio Romano that Newcastle and Burnley are negotiating to try and find an agreement on James Trafford. We then had an update from Florian Plattenberg again, saying that not only has the deal been done, but he has successfully completed a medical, and Max Weiss will be Burnley's new goalkeeper. This is now then brought into a further conversation. Fraser Fletcher of Team Talk has reported and given an update today, saying Newcastle are in advanced talks with James Trafford of Burnley and saying that a deal could be done as early as this week. So there is a potential here that this deal for James Trafford could move quite quickly. we still think this one's the first one that gets done of the summer. It seems like, from what Fraser Fletcher's just said, that potentially could get done very, very soon. Newcastle working on multiple fronts. Who would have thought it? What do you think, Daz?
Yeah, I think so. I think it could well be the one that gets done first. And I kind of said that the other day as well when Chris asked that question. And I said that back a couple of weeks ago on our goalkeeper show. The only game in town is Trafford when it comes to Eddie Howe. And this is one it's going to get done. They're signed their replacement already. I think I got up as far as 27.5 million the last time we spoke about him. I might go to 28, but I think it's just a matter of time now before we agree a fee there. And I think I would be delighted to have Trafford. I think he's the future first, and it starts up a new style of football from us as well, playing out from the back and him starting the play really, he's so young as well. It secures our future, and his value will only go up. And I think he'll be England number one someday as well. So, yeah, it makes complete sense to me. Get it done.
Chris, your thoughts on James Trafford?
Yeah, do you know what? This is the first transfer in a long time. And boys, you'll have to tell me when the last one was. You know, that where we're all, I feel like we're all unanimous. We're all in complete agreement, and there'll be a lot in the chat as well who were saying the same. Like, James Trafford just makes sense, just makes absolute sense, and he ticks so many boxes. You know, the things that we've been speaking about for a number of years now. In as much as Nick Pope's been a really good goalkeeper for us, and he's got many really good qualities, there's a couple of elements to his game that he hasn't got, and he still hasn't been able to demonstrate. And James Trafford has both of those. He just so happens to have both of those things. And, you know, he's a great age. He wants the move, more importantly. And I think that's a really key thing. You know, it nearly happened 12 months ago. He was really keen on the move. This deal just makes sense. It just makes sense. And we spoke on the last show, didn't we, about clubs that may be in, you know, have a few PSR issues. And it did make me laugh when I saw that article today, and it said the deal might get done this week. And I thought, oh, well, that's very coincidental that, you know, the soft PSR deadline ends on Monday. So it wouldn't surprise me if it gets done this week. And then obviously seeing the news that Burnley, you know, fast forwarding a deal to bring in a new goalkeeper, it just makes sense. It really, really does. I feel like 40 million's a lot. So if it was more around the 30 million deal, I actually think I can see, and I think I said this to you boys a number of months ago, I can see why Burnley want 40 million for them, because it could end up being an absolute bargain. But obviously when you agree a fee not that long ago of 15 rising to 20 or whatever it was, to then say, oh, we want double, does seem a bit extravagant. And if Burnley are as desperate to sell or in need of funds as what we believe they are, I do think 30 million is probably a fairer fee. You know, 25 up front, rising to 30 based on appearances, based on England caps, etc. Just makes sense. But I'm really excited by this deal, and I can't wait for it to be wrapped up. I'll be honest, over the past couple of weeks, I've been a little bit nervous because weirdly on X, I've seen loads of rumours of Trafford, but it's been with Man City re-signing them. It's been with Chelsea going for them. So I'm getting a little bit anxious in terms of I just want to get him. I want to get him through the door and just crack on then to the next position, because it feels like a very easy deal to do. I'm sure it's not, but it feels like, you know, Burnley need to sell, Newcastle want him, Trafford wants the deal. It's not silly price. And I just think just get it done. Just get it done.
It's definitely not an easy deal to do, but it's one that Newcastle United have to do, because when you look around in Europe, a lot of the goalkeepers that you would want to come in instead of James Trafford are being linked and likely to go elsewhere. So I think Newcastle United are in a little bit of a corner right now. I think if they don't get James Trafford, I don't think there's a lot on offer, if I'm being honest. And I think if we don't get James Trafford, I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle United don't sign a goalkeeper this summer at all. looking at the likes of Chevrolet being heavily linked with Aston Villa. You're looking at Diogo Costa, who's now rumoured to be asking to leave Porto, being linked with the host of top clubs. There's not a lot of other goalkeepers out there, and yeah, I think it's absolutely crucial that Newcastle United get this deal done. It's not easy. Burnley don't necessarily want to sell their best goalkeeper, and they want to get as much money for him as possible because he's the highest valued player at their club. And so they're in a difficult position, and they're in a very much a strong negotiating position. But the player wants to move. The player wants to go and play for Newcastle United. He's got friends that play for Newcastle United. He would have been having conversations with them. It just makes sense for that deal to happen and to happen very quickly. But let's wait and see on
but
that.
Now that they've signed a replacement goalkeeper, it's even more makes even more sense. And if the rumors are true that there had some PSR issues, this is a no-brainer for them, and everything ticks the box here, so it just gets done.
Well, a lot of Burnley fans are saying that Max Weiss is meant to be coming in as an addition to Trafford, not necessarily to selling. We as the buying club and buying fans are assuming that it is to replace him, but nobody really knows. But we'll have to wait and see. Newcastle United, the emphasis is on them. They've got to agree the fee. And we know how much they want. They want 40 million. We're probably going to have to go over the 35. We'll have to wait and see how that one works out. There's a little bit of an update, the other goalkeepers as well. There's reports from Leeds' perspective that Leeds United held talks with Nick Pope earlier in June. Obviously, they're going to be waiting on the situation with Trafford and to see how much game time Nick Pope is going to be playing before a decision has been made. Other updates on the goalkeeping situation. Transferfeed.com have reported that Olympiacos face complications in trying to sign Odyssey's Vlachodimos, who they want to sign because of the UEFA's foreign player regulation. Although he's a Greek international, he is considered, because of his time in Germany, as a foreign signing to the Greek league. So there's still some issues to go there. Whether he moves or not remains to be seen, but there are definitely some issues there with the goalkeeping situation that needs to be resolved very quickly. Anything on them before we move on?
Just a quick comment here from Kev T. I quite like that. It does put it into perspective a little bit. Kev T says Ramsdale went from to Arsenal 30 million and Nana 44 million, so maybe Trafford is worth 35 million. Again, sometimes you can only base off what players go for. We're not going to mention Odyssey's Vlachodimos and his fee, but certainly some big numbers have been paid for goalkeepers, and if you offered me Trafford for 35 million or Nana for 44 million, I don't know which one I'd pick.
To counteract that, Chris, I'm going to use your own words from earlier, and I'm going to use what the lady from the Burnley YouTube channel who came on the way days. She was willing to drive Trafford to Newcastle at the time. They really wanted rid of him. I know he couldn't have a great season in the Premier League. He's just adjusting to a new club as well, but he's been unbelievable in the Championship. But yeah, you said earlier, Chris, like, we had a fee agreed at 15, and now it's 30. So it's a bit much as well to go that far in on it.
It's difficult, isn't it? And I think it probably didn't help that he had such a good season. He had such a good season for Burnley, albeit in the Championship. It does make it more difficult, but I do, like I say, I do kind of get it, and especially for a goalkeeper, how long goalkeepers can play for, and like I say, James Trafford brings a skill set that we don't currently have in certain areas. So I do understand why Eddie Howe and the club are really keen to bring him in.
Okay, let's move on. Quick words on one or two other players that have been linked and talked about. At the back end of the last show, we had Giorgio Scalvini, the reports coming out from Matteo Moretto, saying that Giorgio Scalvini has been of interest of Newcastle United, and Newcastle United are very, very interested in signing him. Fabrizio Romano came back and referred to Giorgio Scalvini as a dream, Newcastle's dream signing. Other Italian sources have been reporting something similar, but there was a little bit of an update today with regards to Get Italian Football, saying that Atalanta have rejected Newcastle United's approach. Now, there's a little bit of to this particular deal, because to Atalanta, where it came from, initially claimed that Newcastle have tested the waters over the deal for the 21-year-old, but have been forcefully told that they do not want to sell. However, it is slightly contradictory, as a lot of Newcastle fans have suggested the deal's off and it's not happening, that although they've said he's untouchable, they have then reported in the same sentence that a fee of around 40 to 50 million euros may well be considered. So not quite untouchable there, as it mentioned. And it's the actual piece here. They said in recent days have tested the waters for the central defender, but anywhere between 40 and 50 million far exceeds the player's current value. Do you think there's anything in this Scalvini link? Do you think Newcastle United will continue to pursue Giorgio Scalvini, super talented centre-back in Italy? What are your thoughts?
Yes, I think there is something in this. First of all, in Italy, being forcefully told, that's like saying hello. That's how the answer. That everything is being forcefully told. In my experience with Italians, but yeah, he is a class centre back. Absolutely class. 21. I know he's had the bad injury, of course, but he would be super. I actually thought that we had gone in with 40 million. I thought that was what was mentioned where I saw it, but I would be going back, and I'd go back with I'd even go a stretch as far as 60 for him. That's my total limit. I think he's absolutely class. I know a lot of people have shut me down or said the club don't like him. Contacts when it comes to Diamande, but this guy is just as good, if not better, again. Scalvini. So absolutely class. I'd be delighted if we could get him. I know then you're thinking, Pete, back to what we were talking about earlier. We have to balance the books, and we have to consider next season as well, and everything like that. We also have to sell players. But yeah, I think he's worth it. He's definitely is worth it. And again, we're bringing in a friend, an Italian friend for Sandro Tonali as well. Assuming they're friends. And yeah, I just think it would be if it's someone Eddie Howe wants, try and get this one done.
What's your thoughts on Scalvini, Chris? You interested? Is he your number one target? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like him. Obviously, you know, as has been pointed out, he hasn't got the best injury record, but he's certainly a talent for the future and probably a talent for now as well, which I think is the key thing. The report was interesting, Pete, because when you first read the first section out before you went on to the second part, I did think to myself, I wonder if that changes if you put down serious money. And as it turns out, you know, that's kind of what it's looking for. I mean, let's not forget, look at the price that Bournemouth managed to pick up Dean Huijsen for. So you wonder whether Newcastle have made inquiries, and maybe Atalanta are thinking that, you know, we're looking for like a 15-20 million bargain. Let's not forget he's only 21. Obviously comes with a really good reputation, but I think as soon as you start going into the 30s, 40s, 50s, they may look at it, and they will look at it from their side of the coin. So they'll be going, well, he is injury prone. He is only 21. You know, is his level gonna go up more, or is this literally where he is now, and he's just gonna continue as he is? So there is a little bit of a risk in there. But me personally, you know, if you were to offer me now, if you said to me now, you know, pay 50-55 million for Gay or pay 30-35 for Scalvini, I'd rather go for Scalvini personally. You know, just
you'd never get that price, Chris.
No, well, no, maybe not. But I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like it would be worth it would be worth putting the outlay into Scalvini. I mean, you boys, you know my thoughts on the right centre back position anyway. Like, I want a really, really good understudy ready to step in for Fabian Schär. If you told me Fabian Schär was starting the season next season and we had a really good youngster there ready and waiting, I'd be more than happy with that. Right wing, I don't feel that way. Number one, I don't feel that way. I want a new right winger and I want a new number one who's starting in that position. Right centre back, I can live with having a youngster coming in. We've spoken about Chow before as well, haven't we? Somebody who it may take 12 months to get them settled, a bit like Lewis Hall when he came in, 12 months behind the scenes with Eddie, and then he slowly gets, released into the team, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is our future. Something like that would be fine by me. I would be more than happy with that. It's the right wing it's the right wing, it's the number one, the goalkeeper's position, and also the striker position. Because if Alexander Isak's not fit, I don't want to be looking at the bench going, oh, we're going to have to put that 19-year-old on who we don't know if is any good. I'd rather have a first teamer who is going to step in and is going to do the business. The right centre-back position for me is one that I would sacrifice in terms of bringing in a development player. Not someone who's not ready to play football, but just somebody who may take 6 to 12 months to settle. That's fine by me. As long as we've got a top prospect on our hands, I can live with that.
I'm not sure I would be comfortable with that personally. I think that, just in my opinion, I think the centre-back that comes in needs to be someone that by the end of this season is dismantling Schär for his first team position. Just like we've got Sven Botman breathing down Dan Burns' neck, I think it needs to be genuine competition from the start. Schär played pretty much every minute of last season, bar 1 or 2 games that I think through the suspension. So he's got longevity in the game, but at 33 years old, I think we need to be starting to transition this player out, with all due respect to him. And I think the next player that comes in may well doesn't start the season, and Schär does, but I would be expecting by October, November time that this player, whoever we sign, is firmly the number one choice. I think it's really, really important. That's no slant on Schär. That's no slant on Burn. They've been absolutely superb for us for the last 3 years at Newcastle United. Won a trophy for us last season, got us Champions League football. But I'm looking at Newcastle United and I'm looking at this defence, and this defence needs a little bit of work, particularly in the centre-back positions. I'm looking at going away from home in the Premier League. In the top 13 teams in the league, Newcastle United only won 1 of those away games last season. That is, for me, that is a huge concern next season. The only team that we beat away from home in the league was Nottingham Forest. For me, that's not good enough. That's not, next season with added Champions League games, that is not good enough. It's not good enough because that is not sustained. It won't be able to be sustained again. Yes, we'll have Sven Botman, fingers crossed, back in for a full season. But again, you're asking the 33-year-old Dan Burn and the 33-year-old Fabian Schär to go to the well again and play pretty much every game. For me, that's not great. It really isn't. And so looking at that, we need a centre-back that's coming in, that's going to be first choice, that's going to be ready to go. We have to have that. So I do think this centre-back position and this centre-back signing is crucial. It absolutely is. And it goes back to the point that I made about Anthony Elanga. No disrespect to Anthony Elanga. I think he's a terrific player. But if we're detrimental to our centre-back potential signing by spending more on a right winger of Anthony Elanga's skill set, then I wouldn't be comfortable with that. I wouldn't. If we can get both and still outlay 60 million on Anthony Elanga, happy days. But someone like Scalvini is going to command 40 to 50 million because he's that good. But at 21 years old, you've got years left in the game. And 1 or 2 have put about his injuries. His injuries, he obviously had an ACL, which he recovered with quite quickly. And then he had a shoulder injury, which he's fully recovered from now. Players have injuries. Other than that, I think his injury record was pretty sound. Same with Sven Botman before he came to Newcastle United. I'm not worried about his injuries. Alexandro, Jimmy. I think everyone knows how I feel about him. I think he'd be an outstanding signing. But Scalvini's the one that's been linked. Scalvini's the one that I would be interested in most to get through the door. But we absolutely need a player that's ready to hit the ground running.
But doesn't it prove as well? You know, we look at some of the teams in and amongst us. So, you know, I'm looking at Brighton, I'm looking at Bournemouth, particularly just because they're the ones on the top of my head. You know, Van Hecke came pretty much out of nowhere. Zabarnyi, Huijsen. These are players who've come into the Premier League and done a job, and they haven't cost the earth. Look at Forrest, Murillo, Milenkovic. These players have come in and done a job. You don't necessarily have to go and spend 50, 60, 70 million on a centre-back. If you're in that position, brilliant, and you can do it, wonderful. We've also seen 50, 60 million spent on centre-backs that hasn't maybe worked out as well as the clubs would have hoped. I think it's about going in for the right player and trying to find that value. You know, Alexandro, who's just been mentioned, is Alexandro at Lyon? Like how much would he be? I mean, funnily enough, I saw a video of him the other day. I don't know if it was you that posted it, Pete, but I was watching a video of him and he looked very impressive. And I know that we briefly spoke about him, didn't we? We have touched on him previously. But you know, look, how much is he going to cost you? But how much is Mark Gay going to cost you? And this is the whole Europe Premier League thing, isn't it? This is the whole thing. There'll be certain positions where you've got to sacrifice right wing as well, where you go, we either spend 60 million on a right winger, or we go to Europe and we get a 40 million winger, and we develop them and we're trying to bring them on. And sometimes that's just what you've got to do. And particularly for clubs like us, you know, who can't just spend. You know, we've got to be careful.
Well, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see how that one develops. I think there's a couple of super chats.
Let's bring up a couple of super chats. So first of all, Truls, thanks for gifting 5 memberships to the Loaded Ultras. We must get another draw going as well, lads, for the Loaded Ultras. And he also says here as well, he goes, just hope we don't end up with DCL and Grealish. I echo your thoughts there, Truls, that's for sure. That's not happening. LB 1998 says McAtee, 30 million, can play a right wing and in the middle. Very, very good player. A few more latched onto that one in the chat as well. Of course, Man City trying to recoup some cash there with that one. Hey, LB. And Tickle My Tonali gets Scalvini in before Chelsea become interested. 100%.
Wow, there is that. I haven't seen Todd in the chat tonight. Is Todd in the chat? Maybe not there.
Might go under the radar this one. Hopefully. He'll pop up now in a sec. Wait and see. But yeah, that was it for the super chats for now.
Another player that's been linked with a potential move to Newcastle United, a youngster, a one for the future, Park Seung-soo. We weren't sure if this was or had any substance to it, but when Joachim tweeted out that it was close to potentially signing Park, he did mention a top-tier journo, Sao Ho Young, over in South Korea, had reported on it, which for them on their side of things meant that it was likely to be a deal. Mark Douglas has reported on it and said that Newcastle are working on a deal, which means that link is actually true and it's got some substance. Graham Bailey's also reported on it as well, that would beat the likes of Palace, Wolves, Brighton to the signing. Adding another one to the youth ranks and ones for the future. Interesting that it's very close to a pre-season friendly out in South Korea. Do we think it's any coincidence, or do we think this one was planned sort of well in advance? What do you think about this potential deal?
Maybe the timing of it, yes. But yeah, we've followed Park Sung Sing so for years now, haven't we? We know all about him. And I just saw a little clip of him. He looks very raw. And of course, I think was it Bayern Munich looked at him as well, or had a trial with him at one stage. But yeah, interesting to dip our toe now into that South Korean market and see how that goes as well with this guy going on the tour over there too. Be very interesting to see how he gets on. Will he take to life in the Premier League, and he's going to be in the U teams, and see can he break into the first team eventually? Will probably be a few loans involved as well, or will it be Garan Coal? Whatever happens, we need to get those loans right as well. But I'm just going to pick up on one of the comments from John here. It says we don't seem to pick up bargains anymore. I don't think we will. Not at first team level, really. Those bargains, I think, are going to come through picking up a hidden gem somewhere. That's why, whereas technical director or sporting director would come in, and that scouting network and someone for the future and get in there before the likes of Chelsea and Man City and PSG, Real Madrid, Barcelona get in there ahead of us. So it's picking someone up before they are really known. Like we have done with the striker that's coming with us to us this summer as well, that we talked about in the past. But yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you boys have said. I think the timing of it probably suits, with the preseason. But I very much put him in the Salia and Cordero mold. I think he'll be a player for the future, if not for PSR purposes. Even hopefully a minter that we get to keep hold of. He's a forward. It's nice to hear that other clubs are interested in him. So, it doesn't perhaps come across as like a gimmick signing, even though I do think the timing of it is probably, it lines nicely. But yeah, it's great to see that we're bringing youngsters through. But, I suppose it's difficult to pay too much attention to it at the moment, because we know that, the next 5-6 weeks are going to be incredibly important in terms of first team players. And whilst it's nice to bring these youngsters through and it's nice to develop, the underbelly of the squad, I am also really conscious that we've got to start bringing them first team ready players in too.
Any questions from the chat?
Yeah, we've got a few. There was a conversation ongoing in the chat as well about Oscar Bob. Could we potentially get him? And I think people were kind of saying it'd be more so on loan than anything else. So I don't know if Eddie'd go down that route of a loan player and assisting Man City in developing their player. But if we could get him to buy, yes, I'd be all over that as well. Quality player, as we found out to our disadvantage at one point. Any thoughts in there?
Go on, Pete.
No, you go for it. Go
on. Yeah, I mean, Oscar Bob's an impressive player. Whether or not we'd be able to get him on a permanent basis, I don't know. And tell me if I'm wrong, boys. Oscar Bob predominantly plays off the left, doesn't he, rather than the right? I could be wrong saying that. But I think he predominantly plays off the left, but certainly an exciting talent. And if we could get him on a permanent basis or with an obligation or an option, that would be really interesting. But it's whether or not City would want to let him go. Obviously, City have let go of a number of big players who at the time maybe weren't so big, but they've gone on to be very big players like Cole Palmer and Morgan Rogers, etc. So whether or not City would be willing to deal, I don't know. But then, if it all helps towards their PSR, he would be a player who comes in and gives them maximum profit in terms of the sale. But yeah, I mean, I'd be very interested in him. I think he's a good player, but it's just whether or not City would let him go on a permanent basis.
Cool. I'll move on to the next question then. I'll go to one that we all liked and we talked about before, but Kyle Walker-Peters on a free. Did you do that one, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Pete was the one that first flashed this one up as a potential option, given that he was a free. And it seems like a million years ago when we were talking to Mike from VBOG,
Yeah.
and he was saying, "Oh, if you want Kyle Walker-Peters, it'll cost you 50 million." So the fact that he's now on a free, I think it'd be mad. I think it'd be mad not to be interested in him. Someone a bit, it reminds me a little bit of Tino in the sense that he's comfortable on the left and the right. So in terms of squad depth, I think he'd be brilliant. I'd really like us to sign Kyle Walker-Peters. I think he'd be a really good option. But now he's on a free. It's whether or not he wants to move up north to Newcastle. We'll have to see. But I'd hope that we were at least in for them.
Champions League football as well,
Yeah.
to be part of that, and he can play either side. So let's assume it's Tino and Hall that starts in those positions. Then if you had Trips and Walker-Peters as backup, who knows with Trips as well what's going to happen with him. So quality. I would definitely take him on a free. I'd be getting involved. I know Fulham we're talking about him. They're going back about 3 weeks ago, and I was saying Newcastle should be getting involved there. He's quality. Right, let me go to another one. I want to go to this one first from Jimmy. Jimmy Watt says, question. Obviously, there's a lot of negotiations going on, but if Newcastle aren't willing to spend over 60 million on a player like Bueno or Elanga, why are we even bothering looking at Premier League players? Good point.
Yeah, it is a good point. And good friends of the channel, Georgie Journos, they ran an article. Well, they ran an article. They had a discussion the other day about our Newcastle fishing in the Mon market. And it does kind of raise that point, and the fact that Premier League players come at a premium. And if you're not willing to spend 50, 60, 70 million on a player, then, really, should you be looking elsewhere? Should you be looking into Europe, for your targets? Because ultimately, we'd be very lucky, let's be honest, we'd be very lucky to get Elanga for 45 million, because you can see if Brian Mbeumo is setting the marker at 60 plus million, with a year left on his deal, Forest are well within the rights to be asking for at least 60 million for Anthony Elanga. So it's a difficult one. It really, really is. And obviously Brian Mbeumo, he's obviously seen the cash signs with Man United, and Man United are willing to pay him, really high wages. And this is the problem you're going to have. Whereas if you're going for a player from the Bundesliga, from the French league, Ligue 1, from Serie A, your players are going to be on 30, 40 grand a week. And then all of a sudden, if you go, we'll give you 80, 90 grand a week, off you go. Brilliant. Whereas these Premier League players that you're looking at, if you're looking at for some of the really good players in the Premier League, who are already on a decent sum, they're not going to come to Newcastle for 5 or 10 grand a week pay rise. They're going to want they want the big bucks. They're playing in the Champions League. They want the 150 to 200 grand a week, and we're not in that position yet. And this is why picking up the likes of Sandro Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, Alexander Isak, Sven Botman, they weren't on crazy silly money, which is why we've been able to bring them in and put them on very good wages, but not Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool wages. And this is the problem we're going to have.
But we knew that as well. But coming to the start of this transfer window, and that's probably why we're thinking that we'd be going down more the European route than the Premier League route. And then with Mitchell dropping out, then it changed towards Premier League, and now we're finding out, as we guessed, that the wages are going to be crazy, and the fees are going to be crazy as well. But it's just trying to find that sweet spot if someone is worth it, but also bearing in mind, as I'll go on to the next question, like that the budget that we have for that. Because Andy Ford says, if we end up spending 100 million on Trafford and Elanga, that'd be crazy. 100 million on Trafford and Elanga. That'd be. I thought it was a different player other than Trafford in the mix there. Okay, if we end up spending 100 million on Trafford and Elanga, how realistic is a centre half and a backup striker? I can't see the budget stretching much further without selling a big star. Like João Pedro isn't even in the mix there. You're like, fair enough. Yeah,
it's difficult, isn't it, mate? It's difficult, and this is why I was referring to earlier. The likes of Brighton, the likes of Forest. These clubs who are bringing in players from Europe and maybe not commanding those types of fees. Because Andy Ford raises a great point. When you look at if you signed for Trafford and Elanga, and then someone went, yeah, it's cost you 100 mil, you go 100 million. But that's kind of the prices that you're having to deal with when you're trying to sign Premier League players. And I class James Trafford as a Premier League player now, because even though he hasn't kicked a ball this season yet for Burnley, he is technically a Premier League player. And this is the problem. If you want Premier League players, you're paying a premium price. And as you rightly say, Daz, we haven't even included João Pedro, and that João Pedro's the best part of 50-60 million. Add that on. 150, 160 million for Trafford, Pedro, and Elanga. And this, I suppose, this is the difficult. This is what Eddie and the backroom staff have got to try and work out. It's not easy. It really, really isn't. And we alluded to that earlier. It's difficult. But you've just got to get the right players in for the right price. But that makes it sound really easy, but it's not. It's not.
This kind of echoes what you were saying earlier, Pete, really, with overpaying for players. But Anthony, you want to come in on this one?
No, it's exactly what I was saying before. You got to be very, very careful in terms of the money that you're spending, because very quickly it can add up. And the point that I make is that we're not in a position where we're looking to strengthen in one or two areas so you can have an outlay of 60, 70 million on one player. We've got multiple players that we need to sign, so therefore we need to make sure that we've got enough money in the budget to do that. Otherwise, a top player will leave. And is this why we're willing to pay 60 million on Elanga and 60 million on João Pedro? Is it the case that Anthony Gordon will be sold to supplement that fee this summer? Quite possibly. And so if that's the case, fair enough. But I'm still not comfortable with outlaying that amount of money on Anthony Elanga. And I do hope that we either negotiate a lower fee or we look in a different direction. But it is what it is. We just need to look at that situation in a bit more detail. I think 35 million is a fair price for James Trafford. We just need to get those deals done as soon as possible. But we still need a right centre-back. We still need, in my opinion, we need cover for Lewis Hall. I think we may need cover for a right back if Trippier leaves. And I do think that midfield isn't quite strong enough to handle 4 competitions in a season. We have 3 very, very good midfielders in Joelinton, Tonali and Bruno. But outside of that, it needs work. It's still not good enough. And you need to, if you're fighting on 4 fronts, you need to add another player in there. It tells you everything you need to know that Villa had 4 top midfielders that played really well last season. You had Onana, McGinn, you had Tillemans and Kamara. And they just dovetailed between them in games. Brought 2 off, brought 2 on, and they just mixed it and made it match and made it work. We need to do that. We need to have enough quality, strength and depth to be able to do that. And at the moment, we don't. So looking all at those players, we've not even talked about the potential of someone for Isak. We've got a lot. We've got a lot that needs to be done, and I think there'll be a lot of work that needs to be done over the course of the summer. But let's wait and see.
Yeah.
Tino asked the question, and cheers to the super chat to Tino as well. No players from the Latin market for a bargain. If you're talking about South American players there, yeah, they like the real top ones, stand out, the ones that have been talked about, they're always eyed up by Real Madrid and Barcelona, and it's very difficult to get involved, and even PSG are getting involved in that as well at times. But Jay, we don't risk it usually unless it's a really cheapest chips kind of option, and maybe we go for someone in that market in time. We've talked about before that we used to hear that Steve Nixon used to be out in South America, but don't see him out there as much now. We're hearing talk of that, so who knows what the future brings them.
Yeah, it's a market we don't tend to shop in really somehow, is it? I know in the past Obviously we've gone for the likes of Fonas Gutierrez and Fabrizio Colaccini. I'm thinking of obviously not buying directly from a South American league, but South American players. We tend to have like stopped that now. I know obviously we've got Bruno and Joe Linton, but it does feel like there is South Americans out there, particularly from South American leagues, where you can get the bargains. NFFC 2000s just said we took all the South American gems. Yeah. They've got a big emphasis on getting players from there. So might be something we look at in the future. Who knows?
Any thoughts on that one, Pete?
I didn't even hear the question. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, it was about South American players. But here, we'll go to this one to you. It comes from Fumby, and he goes, "Do you guys think the constant info regarding transfers has ruined the experience for fans?"
Depends on how you see it. The rumors of transfers hasn't changed. It's the same as what it always is. I think it's sometimes how fans perceive it to be. Now, the journalist game has changed. We've had this conversation before. There's all the talks of some of the top journalists being paid to put out information for certain clubs and certain teams. That changes things. That changes the perspective, the perception of things, because it doesn't seem quite genuine. But why can't we be excited about potential links and signings to our club? We should be excited about it. Not every signing is going to happen, but the fact that we're linked to certain players, particularly, when you get a sort of like very kind of minimal link and you're just kind of added on as the fourth or fifth club, that's slightly different. But when you're mainly linked, like for example, the link with Giorgio Scalvini, we are the only link there. We are the direct contact. That should be exciting. It should be exciting. We should be happy about that. The direct links alongside Brian and Bremo, we didn't get him, but we were there. James Trafford, Elanga. We should be excited about the links there and the involvement with those players, because we've got a club that are trying to sign players. We haven't got them yet, but we will. I don't see an issue with it, and we should be happy and excited about it. We've gone through many a transfer window where nothing's happened, and we knew that nothing was happening, and we've seen players go to other clubs and we've not even been linked. Keith Downey's been on our show before and talked about the fact that he's had to go to Sunderland's training ground and Middlesbrough's training ground because he knew that Newcastle weren't doing anything. We're in the mix for players. We're looking to sign good players. We should be excited and happy about it.
Yeah, and I don't have to tell Fumby, but if you don't have to look too far back, and all the talk was about Hamza Chowdhury. Those days are well gone now. At least we're spoiled for choice now. And there was a time about a week and a half ago where we thought it's those five players that we're putting on the poster every time, because it was just shopping in the Premier League. Now it's open again. It's open season, and there's going to be an awful lot more links between now and start of the season even. But we just need to get that one over the line. And that's Chris. You want to say there?
No, mate. No. I think Fumby raises a good point. This is what social media has brought, really, hasn't it? All the links that come out, and Pete mentioned earlier, about like journalists, the way journalists do their business or do their dealings, in the past couple of years has changed significantly as well. I think the key, or certainly the key I try to live by is, enjoy it. Feel free to get excited about it, but don't be too disheartened if it doesn't happen, because you end up getting linked with hundreds of different players throughout the course of a transfer window, and how many of those players do you actually sign? Probably quite minimal. So it's not hanging your hat on them. But what I am looking forward to this window is we know we're going to make signings. We know we're going to bring players through the door, and I believe we're going to bring some really good players through the door. So I'm just looking forward to a transfer reveal show, because it feels like we haven't done one of those for about 10 years. So I for one cannot wait.
Cool. That's it for the questions, boys. Where are we going next? Are we saying goodbye, or are we going in another direction?
I haven't got anything else. So unless you've got something you want to bring up, boys.
Just maybe a reminder to our viewers, and it's in the other tab where I was, to if you get a chance, throw a nomination our way for the Football Content Awards for 2025. Just complete the form there, and you never know, we might get nominated. That would be great, and take it from there. That is it. We'll be back as soon as there's any breaking news or when we can. So keep an eye out and make sure you subscribe to Loaded, turn that notifications on as well, and hit that like button on this video as well. But we will see you on the next one. Play out with the Radiators from Radiator Russ. See you there, guys. See you in the next one.
Bye-bye.